Well, welcome back, everyone, to Finding the Good, where we are sharing amazing testimonies about God's goodness in our lives. Today, I am joined by Melody, who I met last year at a Babes Support Babes event in San Antonio. So I have since moved, but I've been able to keep up with her through good old social media. So, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It is such
Yes,
an honor.
Yes, we actually had this scheduled like a while back, and then I found that I was pregnant, and so she actually was one of the first people to find out that I was pregnant because I was like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm feeling so nauseous. I have zero energy. So, like, please hang in there with me and let's reschedule when I feel better. So, thank you so much
Totally
for
get it.
that. But before we get into the interview, why don't you go ahead and just share a little bit about yourself?
All right, so my name is Melody Rodriguez, and I am a photographer here in San Antonio. I am a wife to my amazing husband, Anthony, and I have two boys, Ethan, who's almost 6, and Andrew, who is 2. And my husband and I attend MTF Ministries. We've been there for about 13 years, and we are the youth leaders there. I'm a worship leader there as well. And then I also work part-time as a professor at A&M San Antonio. I teach communication courses. And so, yeah, lots of hats.
Yeah, so you just do like all the things
Yes.
as moms do, and I will find that out soon enough. Um, so today, Melody is going to be sharing her testimony about having a miscarriage, and she shared it a while back on social media. And it was just so beautiful to read how the Lord just healed her and walked her through that time. And so I know that this can be a really sensitive topic, but today we want to give all the glory for what God has done in Melody's life and how He walked her through that difficult time. And so if you've had a miscarriage and maybe you're still struggling with, what happened, I believe that the Lord wants to heal you today and speak to you today. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, my first question is share about the day you found out you were pregnant with your second baby.
Yeah. So I don't honestly remember like the day, but I just remember kind of like the season. I know it was like October, and we had been trying for a little while to have a second baby. Ethan wasn't necessarily planned, it was kind of a surprise. But we were ready to have a second baby. I remember my uncle telling us 3 years apart, like that's the best 3 years
Yeah.
apart. So Ethan was like about to be 3 in May. And so we started trying. Um, and yeah, I got pregnant in October. And then, Christmas came around and I really wanted to announce, but I was like, you know what? Our first appointment was scheduled for January 4th. And so I was like,
Hmm.
I'll just wait. But we ended up taking the pictures, announcement pictures just here at the house.
Yeah.
Um, I had like a little tradition with Ethan to do pictures of him in his Christmas PJs every Christmas. So
Hmm.
for this one, I just had him wearing a shirt like Brother Bear. I had a shirt Mama Bear and Papa Bear.
Yeah.
And yeah, we took our pregnancy announcement photos, and I just had them ready, and I was gonna post as soon as like we were done with that first appointment. One thing I do remember about that season of like, those seasons, those few months where you're like, I'm gonna tell everybody, but
Yeah.
I told close family and friends, and we are just really excited. But I remember one specific time, my Andrew's room now, my second son's room, was just empty. It had like a bed in there. It was like a guest room and storage. And I would go in there often to pray because, it was quiet. So I went in there one day and I was praying. And I just remember having like this vision of this little girl, and she was like dancing around. And I don't remember seeing Jesus, but I know he was there. Like I could just
Hmm.
felt his presence there. And it was just like an open field. And I was like, okay, God, like who's this girl? Like cool. And I didn't know I was pregnant at the time. And so I had this vision. And then all I remember from that vision is this like quiet, still small voice of God saying, I am sovereign.
Mm.
And I was just like, it was just kind of one of those prayers, like, I don't really, okay, cool, thanks, God.
Hmm.
And then, like, you walk away, you're like, all right, I didn't think anything of it. I find
Yeah.
out I'm pregnant and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is a girl. I never actually found out if I had a girl or boy, but I don't know. I still don't know if that was a
Hmm.
vision of the future or something else, or. But just that phrase, I'm sovereign, it like really stuck with me.
Yeah, I love that. When the Lord like gives us words or visions and he's preparing us for what we don't even know what's ahead. He's so good in that way. And so then in January, you go to your baby's first doctor's appointment. And so what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, we were excited. You go into your first appointment, you're not expecting nothing bad, right? Like you always
Yeah.
expect the best. You want to see the baby, the sonogram, all of that. My husband and I went. We left Ethan with my mom. We go into the appointment. The doc, the nurse comes in. We get dressed, all of that, lay on the table, and the doctor comes in, just all normal, right? Like does the sonogram, and then of course there's that like moment of a little bit of silence, and she's like, okay, and then she just kind of looks at me and she's like, so it just kind of starts explaining what she's seeing, and she said so you said that you're, according to your last period, all of that, it should be like 9 to 10 weeks, and the fetus is measuring at 7 weeks.
Hmm.
And so she's like, like, let's clean you off and get you up, and then we can talk about what this could mean. And so at that point, it just like tears start streaming. Like you think the worst. You're just like, well, what does that mean?
Hmm.
Um, and at that moment, I remember laying down still, jelly on your stomach, and I hear that voice again. I am
Mm.
sovereign. And I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like you trust God's sovereign, but that might not mean the good news that you're expecting.
Hmm.
And so, I get up, clean up, and the doctor just basically says, um, it could just mean that you're way earlier than expected, and the fetus is smaller. There's no heartbeat as well, as of then. And she's like, it may just be too early to tell if the baby is younger than what you're thinking. She said, or your body will eventually like start miscarrying. And she explained the different ways that it could happen. Um, of course, I'm in complete shock. It's like nothing ever felt anything different than my
Hmm.
first. And so, yeah, we just decided, okay, we would come back in 2 weeks
Yeah.
and, and see what happened.
Yeah, and so between that appointment and the following 2 weeks,
Yeah.
what were your prayers? What were your conversations like with God during that time?
Um, I will say the next month, well, the next 2 weeks,
Yeah.
was the longest time of my life. But those first 2 weeks, I was actually full of faith. I was like, oh, God's going to do this. Like, he's going to completely heal. This baby's going to be a miracle. In the way I'm expecting it to happen, it's like, it's going to be born, like this
Yeah.
baby's going to be fine when we go back. And my church always does in January a month of prayer and fasting. And so we were going to start prayer and fasting. Um, and I remember that day that we found out, January 4th, I believe it was that day. I think it was a Wednesday. And we were like, well, do we go to church or do we not go to church? And I decided I want to go to church. Like if there's anywhere I should be, it's at the feet of Jesus.
Hmm.
And I remember just going, I was a worship leader, but I told my leader, like, I'm not going to be able to sing. I can't minister to people. I need to receive. So
Yeah.
I remember just sitting at the altar and crying, like, and thank God the music's loud because I was
Yeah.
wailing, crying, like I was crying. And um but yeah, over the next 2 weeks, my prayer was just, God, like, do this, like, do what I've sung so many songs about you being a miracle
Hmm.
worker,
Hmm.
a way maker, like, do the miracle, and I was a confident. I remember singing, oh, what is that song called? I just remember the beginning. It says, you are life, you are love. You give life. I don't remember the lyrics. You give life, you give love. And I just remember like that was my song. Like, you give life. You can do this. Like I was full of faith those first 2 weeks. Of course, I was crying and emotional and like also thinking the opposite of like, and what if not? What if God doesn't come through the way that I am expecting? And I guess my prayer was just like, I'll worship you even if not.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was,
Do
yeah.
you feel like you heard anything back during that time, or it was just still that same word that he had given you that he was sovereign?
No, I don't remember hearing anything in those first 2 weeks. I remember, like, just being, like, on fire and, like, worshiping and fighting and, like,
Yeah.
warring.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't know what God was. I'm sure he was just giving me space to, um, accept and deny and all of the things, but
Yeah.
I was I don't know, I was, like, on fire. I was, like, warring in the spirit of, like, "This is gonna happen. Like, God, you're gonna do the miracle."
Yeah. So then 2 weeks pass and you go to your doctor's appointment and you find out that you did indeed miscarry. Can you talk about that day?
Well, I hadn't miscarried yet, so I went to my next appointment 2 weeks later,
Okay.
and, they check everything. Like, I still hadn't miscarried, which
Mm-hmm.
was also kind of an odd thing. Um, it was essentially the same thing. I go into the office, they did the sonogram, the baby's still measuring 7, I don't know I don't know what it was, and 7, um, inches or whatever it is, and but she mentioned like there is tissue starting to disintegrate.
Hmm.
So she basically just said, like, this isn't a viable pregnancy, and that then presented us with the options. She had said we could do naturally, like just let the miscarriage happen when it happens, do a DNC or schedule a DNC, or you can take like a pill that they give you and it makes you go into like miscarriage,
Mm-hmm.
labor, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at that point, I was still in shock, like, disappointed, wondering, like, God, you said this and I prayed this, you said you're a healer and I trusted you and to heal, So I was definitely disappointed. I was definitely sad. I think just disappointed was the word. Like, I knew God again is sovereign. I knew his will
Mm-hmm.
is perfect. But it was just like, man, like I did all the things I was supposed to do. Like I worshiped through the storm. Like I declared, I prayed. Um, and my question was just like, where are you, God? Like,
Hmm.
why is this happening? And so my husband and I decided, just to wait to let my body, naturally, miscarry, which it took another 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So so basically a full month of just unsure, like, just, is this going to happen? Is this not? God, are you going to do the miracle? Are you not? Um, going to church and just worshiping through it and like crying through it. And I honestly feel it was a test of my faith, just
Mm-hmm.
a testing period, because I had sung all of these worship songs and led people in worship of like, making these declarations. And it's now like, okay, well, now do you still believe that? You
Mm-hmm.
know, if God disappoints you, like, will you still worship and sing these, songs? And I was like, yes, like, I will still sing, I will still worship, like, you are still worthy, you're still good, even though I don't understand right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2 weeks go by, and 2 weeks go by, another 2 weeks, and it puts us around like end of January, and I still hadn't miscarried. And so I went back to the doctor and I had just told her, can you just do one more, like one more sonogram? Like, I just want to make sure. Um, I just wanted to make sure because I was going to ask them for the pill that like
Yeah.
makes you miscarry. Um, so she's like, of course, yes. They didn't, of course, they didn't charge me for any of this. And she's doing the sonogram, same thing. She's like, the tissue's starting to disintegrate. And so I was just still almost like in a denial, like still like, oh, okay. And so maybe I scheduled the DNC for like the following Thursday, I think it was. Yeah, I think my appointment was like on a Wednesday or Thursday. So she scheduled it for a week later. Um, but then that weekend comes, and I remember even going to class, because I was teaching at A&M. I remember going to class and starting to like have slight cramps, and I was like,
Mm.
teaching, trying to put on a normal face, like everything's good, and just like knowing like something's coming. And so that weekend, I remember Saturday still feeling cramping. And then Sunday comes and I'm supposed to go to church. And something told me, just don't go, and I'm not
Mhm.
one to like skip church.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I stayed home and yeah, the whole process just like started.
Yeah. Do you want to share any of that? Because I know, like in your social media posts, you touched on that a bit, and then you even said that the Lord was like speaking to you in
Yeah.
those moments, which I think is really incredible.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I will kind of say a warning like this. I mean, if that's okay, I'm going to
Yeah,
share in
sure.
details. And so I remember just kind of sitting on my couch watching TV while it was, happening. I began, of course, just to start bleeding, like if you had a period.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it didn't happen like all at once. It was just little by little. But I remember a specific moment. I had Ethan there with me. I think he was actually only 2 at the time. So yeah, he's 2 years old, playing with me right there. I'm on the couch cramping. It's like labor, like you're in
Mm-hmm.
like labor basically. Definitely not as intense, but and I sit up on the couch and I all of a sudden just feel like this wave of, I don't know, grief. I don't know what it was, but I began to like wail and bawl. And all of a sudden I just felt like this gush. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, this is it. Like, this is like the main part. And poor Ethan, like, I'm sure was like traumatized at the moment, but I was like, go call daddy. My husband was in the garage. And I basically just got up and went to the bathtub. And I'm just crying at that point, wailing. And stuff is just gushing out. And um, my husband comes in and he's like, "What's going on?" Because I mean, everything was calm before at that point, and um, I was just distraught, like just to see everything and just to see like this is my child, like this is everything that was housing it and like sitting in it, in the tub, and he closes the door, allows, Ethan to go over there. He calls my mom. My mom comes. She doesn't live too far, and she's just there, like, rubbing my back. And as this is just happening and cramping, and it's almost like you're having those labor pains of those
Mm-hmm.
contractions of coming out. And yeah, I ended up getting out of the tub, cleaning up and all that. And I ended up actually having like another gush a little bit later. And um, yeah, it was it was traumatic to see, but I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Like I wouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy that I didn't do the DNC. Just me personally, like I don't know. I didn't want that. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew, I was like, thank God that his will was done and that I actually had the miscarriage before
Yeah.
that appointment. But um, it was hard, but I just feel like just that encounter, that voice of God telling me of what Jesus did for us. I was just like, man, the things that we can learn through trauma and learn
Yeah.
through like just the hardest situations. It's just crazy how God just truly makes everything work for our good.
Yeah. And so when after that happened, emotionally, spiritually, what was that process like for you to receive healing?
um I'm I would say definitely healing is a process. I still feel like um just in the subject of death in general. I've had friends pass away over the last couple of years. Um, it's been hard. Even seeing after that, even seeing like other babies like pass and stuff like that, hearing of that, I would just break down and just wonder like, God, why? Like this doesn't seem fair. Like, why do you allow death, to happen? And so it's been a journey. The
Yeah.
healing has been definitely been a journey, of being angry with God, of being disappointed with him, of, wanting my will to be done, and
Mhm.
we only see such a small perspective, and he sees the bigger picture. And so I've, the story of Lazarus, like every time I come to that story, it confronts that unbelief in me a little bit, like that unsurety in me still that I have. I've definitely got, talked with God and wrestled with God about all of this, about
Mhm.
death and miscarriage and all that. So healing has definitely been a process. I would say reading his word, um, community, like having people around you. I have like my family, which is really close to me, my church family, talking about it, confessing it, has
Yeah.
really, really helped, sharing the testimony. Um, just like realizing like many people have gone through this, and um, I was able to help a friend through a miscarriage like after me, and a family member as well. And it's just like, oh, okay, God, like this is why, like
Mhm.
it's through the power of his word and our testimony that that we triumph over the enemy. And so instead of allowing these things to defeat us, and allow us to kind of turn away from God and like turn away from our calling, it's through these things, through this
Mhm.
testimony, that we overcome, we triumph over the enemy. And he hates it,
Yeah.
but we get to help other people. And I
Mhm.
actually, the one with my family member happened very soon after, and that person's not quite a believer. So it was amazing that I was able to like share, that Jesus was there comforting me. And so,
I love that how God uses, those painful seasons in our lives for purpose and to help others
definitely.
along the way. That's really beautiful. So how can you see the goodness of God coming out of that season?
Well, I got to tangibly see the goodness of God come out because a few months later, after my miscarriage, I think it was about 4 or 5 months, I had my son, or I got pregnant with my son, Andrew. And I remember God telling me like, this is the joy after mourning. And
Mm.
Andrew is such a ball of joy. Like he
Yeah.
is just like, in one of his newborn photos, he was smiling like as a newborn,
Mm.
and he just has always been just the happiest, and full of energy. And so I feel like I tangibly got to feel God's joy after, um, but even, despite having my son, I just see, I don't know, I just see God has been with me through it. Like he promises to comfort us. He
Mhm.
promises to never leave us nor forsake us. Um, yeah, he promises to walk with us through the valleys and the mountaintops. And I just felt him so much throughout the whole process.
Mm.
And I would just want people to know, like, he's there. Like, as much as you may think like he's not there, where is God? Like, he is all around us. He is so good. He is like, he wants the best for us. And
Yes.
um yeah, he can make these things good somehow. It's just, it doesn't make sense to our human minds,
No, not
but
at all.
he can.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you, Melody, so much for sharing your testimony. I know you were a little hesitant about being, how open to be, but I really truly believe that the Lord is using your testimony to minister to someone today who's watching. And so I'm so glad that we finally got to sit and chat after all this time. And yeah, I really appreciate you being open and vulnerable. Like you said, the things we go through, it seems so hard in the moments, but the Lord is good to redeem anything bad that's happened to us. So
Yes.
thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much.